moving on to something because we're approaching the midway point of the season, contender or pretender. All right. Now we're assuming here that Texas Tech is in the driver's seat, right? Now we'll talk about that Kansas game. We'll see what happens with that game. But as of right now, it looks like Texas Tech is in the driver's seat to make it to Arlington. So the question is, who's going to play them there? We got several teams that are still very much in the hunt. I've only picked 6 of them, but we're going to try and figure out whether or not this team is a contender or a pretender in the title race. Team number 1, a team that is sneakily still undefeated, those BYU Cougars. Is BYU a contender or a pretender, gentlemen?
I think that they're a contender. I mean, their schedule, they're going to play at Utah. Obviously, they have Holy War up in Provo. I think that one's obviously going to be a hard-fought game. Iowa State is definitely not the team that they were earlier in the season, especially with all the injuries. I really don't think that we're going to have all of our backups prepared by that game. And then their only true challenge left on the road is going to be Texas Tech or sneakily Cincinnati, if Cincy is still going to be as good as they were last week.
To contrast this, you're going to be surprised because I actually love BYU. They're like, that's the team in the Big 12 that I watch every single game. And after watching every single game, I have to say, the jury's still out here. I firmly believe that they're a contender, but could be a little dose of pretender here, only because who are the teams they've played so far? Portland State, Stanford, ECU, Colorado, West Virginia. West Virginia, bottom of the barrel of the Big 12. Colorado, bottom of the barrel of the Big 12. ECU, not a great team. Granted, they did that on the road, but not a great team. Stanford, clearly not a good team. Portland State, clearly not a good team. Yeah. So they haven't really played anybody worth like mentioning yet. And so when they have this game this week against Arizona, and then you've got the one after that, like Brownie mentioned, with Utah, those 2 games I think are we're going to give you a lot better of an idea of where this team is going, because I believe that BYU's got it. They have enough to get there. The biggest question mark right now, I think, still is like, what's Bear Bachmeier going to look like against a lot tougher of defenses? What's he going to look like against like a Texas Tech? What's he going to look like against a Utah? And I think that's where you might see a little bit more pressure. But I'll still rock them all day. BYU's contender for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like the way I look at this is like, do they have a realistic shot of making the Big 12 title game? And for that reason, like, I'm not saying that BYU is not a good team. They're a great team. They got a great defense. But like you say, the schedule is, there's a reason they're 5-0, right? Mm-hmm. I think that they're a pretender in as far as the championship race. I think that as they continue on down the schedule, they face some of these harder teams, right? They're going to find themselves on the outside looking in, I think. But they're going to be feisty. They're going to be pesky. They're going to be a really hard out every freaking time. I'm not looking forward to playing them in Provo, but I don't see them as a true contender in this title race.
Kelly and Glasgow are both also not 100% because they both left that last game too. So I guess it's the severity of those two, because if you lose both of your middle linebackers that are like the heart and soul of your defense, that might change a lot of perspective.
Yeah, Kelly's a Sunday player for sure.
Mike is asking about Jake Retzloff. He is at Tulane right now, which you see Tulane is thriving.
And he's absolutely murdering people in G5.
Yeah, as you'd expect. The BY Jew, parting the Red Sea there. Okay, so let's move right along, Justin. Bearcats, are they contenders or are they pretenders?
You're not going to make me say anything other than contender. You can't. You can't. That's just wrong. No, like the Bearcats, I think are legit contenders here. I think when you're going to get to the end of the season, you're going to look back and say, this team far surpassed its expectations. This team broke the ceiling for sure. I think that is going to be the conversation around this team. Will they be in the title game? They've got a solid shot. And I think the biggest thing for me right now is you look at the rest of our schedule that's left. Look at who we have. I wish that looking back at last year, looking to this year, last year we had Colorado and last year we had Kansas State. I wish that were the conversation this year, because man, would I love to have them too. However, our next 3 games are UCF, Oklahoma State on the road, and Baylor. They should realistically be 3-0 in that stretch. Baylor is going to be prickly. It's going to be tough, and it might be a 50-50 game. But UCF and Oklahoma State right now, with the way those programs are and with the way ours is, they have no business losing either of those games. And if that's the case, you're going to get to 6 or 7-1 really quickly. And then you have at Utah, Arizona, BYU, TCU. That's the stretch where I'm a little nervous. I think they could get a little bit hot. But as we saw last year, they started 5-2 and ended 5-7. So I still have to see the proof in the pudding of this team actually finishing when it comes to the season-long sort of issues. But they're healthy. Generally, they've stayed in a pretty good position, whereas they had a lot of bleeding last year at certain positions. So I feel really good about them. But I think that Utah game and, quite honestly, that BYU game are the ones that worry me the most. TCU, because it's on the road, coin toss. Coin toss. Coin toss. I'm a little nervous about that. And that, quite honestly, that game could very easily decide the difference between who's in and who's out.
Yeah. Brownie, you think Cincinnati's a contender or no?
Honestly, I think it could go either way. Their schedule is extremely favorable. I definitely give them that. Beating Iowa State and Kansas at the very beginning also definitely propelled them forward, especially beating Iowa State, who everybody was assuming before that game was a contender for the Big 12 title. I think realistically the stretch is going to be how good is Baylor actually? Like, did they finally learn to play football? Because remember, last year they didn't learn to play football until halfway through the season. That's past the halfway point. So is it going to be another switch on where Dave Aranda is starting to feel the fire underneath his seat to where he all of a sudden pulls out a winning season again? That Utah game, I think, is going to be extremely challenging, as much as I hate Utah. I mean, Salt Lake is pretty rough to begin with. I think Cincinnati can do it. Utah's defense is fairly decent still. It's just more of like Cincinnati has to keep doing what they did against Iowa State, and that's put a team in a hole at the very beginning and then just hope that that secondary can hold up when teams have to start passing it. Because Rocco Beck missed a lot of open passes and a lot of easy passes. And if you have a Sawyer Robertson doing that, a Bachmeier doing that, a Hoover doing that, they're more than likely going to make those passes where Rocco just was not Rocco. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's, I think, a 50-50. It all depends on if Sorsby can give them that lead going into halftime to where they can just ride it out and make the second half dirty.
Yeah. I just want to add this too real quick. The Bearcats, as it currently stands, are 20th in strength of record and 51st in remaining SOS, which actually is pretty good. And if you can keep that balance and those two things apart, I think that's actually, kind of shows just what's left on the table. But again, it's not going to be easy. That final 4-game stretch could get really scary really fast.
Yep.
It's not all that basketball. We're just going to eat ourselves.
Yeah. It's not all that different than TCU. It's a tough rest of the way, but you control your own destiny, right? Can you win one at a time? Can you keep yourself in contention? I mean, there's a pathway. There is. Sure. Well, Brownie, we just talked about Cincinnati. Let's talk about Iowa State. Is Iowa State out of the picture now?
Yeah. Not to be Mr. Doom and Gloom, but like I said, we're down to walk-ons in the secondary. It's the exact same issue that we had last year going into the Kansas game, right? Like, Iowa State was 6-0, went into Kansas. We were down to 2 walk-on linebackers and a scholarship true freshman that didn't play football until his senior year of high school as like our 3 linebackers. And our safeties had no shoulders, and one safety had a club for an arm, where he could have finished 3 games if he had the use of both hands, but he had to swat the ball down instead of try to catch the football. It's the exact same scenario, except now it's the secondary. And Iowa State has a lot of teams with really good quarterbacks left on that schedule. And I said at the very beginning of the season, the worst position on Iowa State was going to be the secondary and the safeties. Now you just got rid of almost 4/5 of our starters when I said it was questionable, and now it's even more questionable. So if you talk to an Iowa State fan and they tell you, hey, I'm not worried about our defense because the secondary will be just fine, they're lying to you. I called it from the beginning.
Yeah.
I bit into the hype last week until I saw the injury report, and now I'm like completely out on them. I genuinely think this is going to be a 6-6 team now.
Well,
just
yeah,
because of injuries.
Yeah, well, you said it. This is a horrible, horrible point in the season for these injuries to have happened, because I think y'all should beat Colorado, right? Colorado's its own mess,
allegedly.
But you've got BYU, Arizona State, TCU, Kansas, back to back to back to back. Oh my God, right? That's
name me a bad quarterback on that list.
Yeah.
I mean, Jalen
that's
Daniels,
a really rough stretch to have so many injuries in the secondary. And yeah, Iowa State, this could get. It's kind of like we talked about Kansas State after that Ireland game. Yeah. There's a world where this could get ugly fast, right? So hopefully y'all are still in contention when you come down to Fort Worth, so it's at least a fun one.
Don't expect that. It might be a toilet bowl game too.
Yeah. Well, Justin, what do you think? Contender or pretender? Did you just beat a pretender, or are they for real?
Pretender. I hate saying that too, because I really do like Iowa State. And I think I really respect what the program is, and how much they've turned it around from what they used to be. And I think last year clearly showed that they were a very good team, but to all the exact same points that Brownie mentioned, it's just when you're bleeding your depth that fast, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if you have an injury at your starting position in 1, 2, or 3 different spots across the board, you can get by. Actually, it can be even core like positions, but when you have an entire section of your defense just eviscerated, guess what? If I'm Cincinnati, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw at your corners every single day. If I'm Colorado, if I'm BYU, if I'm Arizona State, if I'm TCU, all these guys they have up next, what am I going to do? I'm going to throw directly at your corners, and I'm going to make them work. They might get a little bit better because they're going to get more reps, but realistically, are they going to? Probably not. And I think that when you have a hole that's that big, it just is going to be really difficult for them to not have that be exposed. You can change your defense and try to restructure it as much as you can, but it's a fundamental part of football that you're just going to keep getting hit. You're going to keep getting punched in that weak arm, and they're going to keep going for that weak spot. And that's how the game is played. And, offensively, I think they've got some, good things going for them, but I just don't see how they can make improvements. I realistically think they beat Colorado and they beat Oklahoma State. Outside of that, I struggle to see where the wins are, because the TCU games on the road, you have the 2 hardest teams at home. Actually, you have all 3. It's kind of interesting. You have probably the 3 weakest teams on the road, and you have the 3 strongest teams of your remaining schedule at home, which it does actually help them a lot. I don't think I disagree. They're not going to be a 6-6 team. 7-5, maybe 8. Maybe they can get to 8, but they're not going to be a 6-6 team. They're going to be better than that.
I guess. I don't know. I literally looked at our roster. We do have 18 defensive backs on the roster. However, we don't split them in corners or safety. So if you're realistically talking as like a position as a whole, like the secondary as a whole, we are out 1/3 of our safeties and corners.
Wow. That's
1/3 of our position is down, and 1/3 are actually all walk-ons and or converted wide receivers this year, which is going to be great for future development. I'm just saying. However, does not help our situation whatsoever right now.
Yeah. Well, we got 3 more contender pretenders. We've just had so much to talk about today, and then we got to get to the games. So Arizona State, I think this Utah game is going to be very telling, because Arizona State snuck by BYU and TCU, a game that TCU should have won. I will die on that hill. Should have won that game, but just completely pissed down their leg in the second half. Is Arizona State a contender for real? Are they for real?
I think I would say yes, only because they have clearly shown they have an ability to just figure it out late. And that's a thing. That is, again, a trait that talked about it with the Bearcats earlier. That's a trait that is important if you want to get far. Again, they don't have quite the same roster that they had last year, but they're pretty darn good. They're pretty darn good. And if you look across the rest of their schedule, you got Texas Tech, you have Iowa State. Those are your two tough teams, but you got Houston, which I'm not a believer in as much as I am happy for them that they're, finally kind of turning it around. West Virginia, Colorado, and Arizona. You're telling me they're not going to win those 4 games? So then you got Iowa State and Texas Tech, and Iowa State we're saying is probably going to lose. So what? They're going to lose to Texas Tech and maybe Utah. They're 2-0 right now. That's 2 losses. 2 losses probably puts you in the Big 12 championship game at the end of the year.
Yeah, I really think that it's going to be the Utah and what happens for the Texas Tech game and after the Texas Tech game.
Yep.
Because if they go out and they beat Texas Tech, like
they could.
It's at home. Like it's not a road trip to Lubbock. If they beat Texas Tech, then it's all going to be about how can they handle after that.
Yeah.
If they lose to Texas Tech at home, it has to be a how do you recover from that to still make the championship game? Because now you're not in the driver's seat anymore. If you lose to Tech, you are now in recovery mode. And it literally might be what happens in Ames. Like, is there going to be Jack Trice horror 2.0 for like another heavy ranked team where they just come in and they screw the pooch? Like that, I think that's what's going to be the telling sign is their response to Tech.
Yeah. Now, don't let the stadium fool you. Baylor is still 4-2, 2-1 in conference, and very much in the mix right now. But can we agree they're all pretenders? What do we think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm never going to say anything good about Baylor, so pretender from me.
I mean, the problem I have though is outside of the TCU game and the Cincinnati game, they also have a pretty easy schedule because they also have like Utah at home, Houston at home, and at Arizona. So realistically, if you're thinking about it, I think it comes down to that TCU and Cincinnati road stretch. So if they can get by, if they lose both, they're screwed. If they go 1-1, they have a potential chance, and we might end up with like last year's giant like bracket tree of what if isms. Like I would love for that because then everybody has to tune in to every single Big 12 game just to see what's going on. But as a fan that was chasing the Big 12 championship game, I hated it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh my God, I have to have all of this shit happen plus my team win.
Yeah, I would just say too, like, just adding to it, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Samford, and SMU are their wins. SMU, it's say what you want about them. They're a decent team, but they're not good. They're not bad. They're just somewhere in the middle. They're just somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
But if you look outside that game and your best wins are Samford, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State, watching what you have from this year, they have a lot to prove.
I agree with Fish.
I agree. I think that road stretch for them is going to be really telling.
Yeah. Well, let me say this about TCU. Our offensive line is horrible. They need to play a lot better, but this is a completely different team when Kavorian Barnes and Eric McAllister are healthy and on the field. Completely different team. Also, I will go on record and say that I believe that this is the best defense TCU has had under Sonny Dykes. I very truly believe that. Is TCU a contender for the Big 12 championship, or are we big, fat, ugly, stupid pretenders?
If we did like preseason contender versus pretender, I would definitely like say probably pretender because you have K-State, you have Baylor, you have Iowa State, you have BYU, like, and you had Arizona State. Like all of those just scream you could potentially lose those, and you could literally look at either being undefeated in the Big 12 or like 3 or 4 losses in the Big 12. Obviously, Iowa State's still not going to be the same thing. BYU still looks good. So that one might be a little bit rough in Provo. You guys are probably going to have to pack up your winter parkas and put on like 3 layers of base layers to go out and play in Provo because it might be snowing.
We used to do that in the Mountain West.
But yeah, I don't know why, but I feel like Kansas State and Baylor are going to figure their shit out. And when they do figure their shit out, it's going to be a very bad day for the Big 12 because they are literally going to throw the wrench like Kansas did last year.
Yeah. Hopefully not.
I'm not gonna say either way.
I got to win in Manhattan, man. I got to get a win in Manhattan. Come on. I got to get one. Are we pretenders, Justin?
Sorry, my connection has been horrible. So I heard about like 3 words out of that whole thing. I don't know what's happening, but
don't worry about it.
I don't know. I'm still putting my feelers out here for TCU. I think if you're playing the schedule game here, they clearly can put up some points.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit of the classic like TCU, or not classic TCU, classic Big 12, kind of offenses. And I think they have one of those this year. We'll see how they sort themselves out because I think they have a winnable stretch here too, in the next three games or so. But it's not bad for TCU. They have a stretch here to finish out their season where they could go and make some noise pretty quickly.
Yeah. If I'm putting on my purple-colored Optimist glasses, right, bearing in mind that our offensive line is horrible and we just lost one of our tackles of an already horrible line, right? The Optimist perspective is, even with this line and without Eric McAllister and without Kavorian Barnes, we still should have beat Arizona State. You were still up 17-0 on Arizona State, and you found a way to lose that game without 2 of your best offensive playmakers and with a terrible offensive line. That, to me, is a reason for optimism if Eric McAllister and Kavorian Barnes are healthy. And you got a good defense, a defense that bends but doesn't break. I don't like the 3-3-5. I don't think it's fun to watch. I don't enjoy anything about it, but we're keeping points off the board, right? So we'll see what happens. Let's pick some